welcome to a Friday edition of K&A. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Anwar Richardson. We are on the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. Do us a solid, like this video, subscribe to the channel, get notifications, ring that bell, do all those things that everybody on YouTube videos asks people to do on the regular. Do that for us. And this video brought to you by myperfectfranchise.net. Find freedom in your next venture. Call Andy. Andy at myperfectfranchise.net is the email, or you can give him a call at 404-973-9901. You can see the information right above our heads. The bottom line is, if you're looking to change your life, if you're looking to take control of your destiny and no longer work for the man, but become the man and live in your dream, that's what Andy can help make come true. He can help you start out an LLC, a small business, all of these things, your own franchise. That's what he does. Anwar, on this Friday today, we're talking point spreads, which would make me think typically that we're close to the start of the season, and we're not. We're really far away. And yet some news was made yesterday when FanDuel released some early college football lines. We'll talk about both of them. Let's start with Alabama. Texas listed by FanDuel as a 9.5-point underdog. It was 8.5 by a different point spread. Maybe MGM or somebody like that the day before had an 8.5. So over the course of this week, I've seen 8.5. I've seen 9.5. All Texas fans are convinced that Texas is going to win that game outright. When you heard the point spread 9.5, was your instinct to jump all over that and it's Texas with the points all day long? Or for you, is there any kind of pause whatsoever?
The odds like that are probably designed, Catch, to get you to jump on that 9.5, right? Because you don't want the over on that one. That's asking a lot. But there is a part of me, Catch, that looks at that 9.5 and I go, that's intriguing, because I can talk myself into it, Catch. The biggest difference that I'll have to acknowledge at that point is, it will be on the road. It'll be in Alabama. It'll be a hostile environment. So you cannot ignore all of those things. But I will also be reminded that, Alabama, and listen, we know they reload at Alabama. So I'm not going to sit here and act like they, quote unquote, have down years. But Alabama's not coming off one of their toughest years ever, one of their best years ever. We saw Texas team battle this team toe-to-toe. Granted, it was at home. But, I can tell myself, Catch, Quinn Ewers got hurt in that game. This offensive line for Texas was able to hold up against a defense that many of us didn't think they would be able to do. I look at that, and I don't look at it as this insurmountable thing. Bryce Young will be gone. It's hard to replace a guy who's won a Heisman and just think like in week 2, it's all going to click and all be automatic. So, yeah, I look at that and I'd say that 9.5, I would probably today be leaning a little bit more towards Texas on that side.
I probably would as well, but it's a tricky game. I think on the Texas side of things, in the positive, you're getting Alabama second week of the season. You're getting them early. And they're going to be going through what Texas went through a year ago with a brand new young quarterback, probably really inexperienced. I mean, it remains to be seen who emerges as the number one guy there. It could be former Texas quarterback commitment Jalen Milroe. It could be players recruited underneath him that, it's not like Alabama is suffering for candidates. They're like Texas. They recruit really well. Who is the next Bryce Young, if you will? So if you're Texas, you couldn't ask for a better spot to catch Alabama. By the end of the year, I expect Alabama to be really, really, really good, as they were at the end of this year when they beat Kansas State in a bowl game like Kansas State insulted their grandmother. And yet there are still questions about, is Texas good? And I still don't really know the answer. Like there's good in the Big 12 and going on, being able to beat the Kansases and the Kansas States of the world and going on the road and winning those games like Texas did a year ago, which saves us the conversation that we would otherwise be having all offseason, which is, can Texas even win on the road? That was a question mark until very late in the season. And then they handle their business, and suddenly it's less of an issue than it otherwise would have been because the raw numbers over the course of 2 seasons haven't been good. But Texas ends on a real high note. But there's going on the road in Manhattan, Kansas, and then there's going on the road in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And I don't have a good answer. I will know how I feel about that point spread when we see a little bit more of Quinn Ewers during the offseason, during the spring. Just how much progress does this Texas passing attack make? If we can certifiably believe going into that game that Quinn Ewers is closer to being the number one overall player in the country than he was a year ago in his first year in the starter. If he makes that leap, this game looks entirely different from my perspective. As it stands, Alabama's just better than Texas. And they've been better than Texas. And I'm not completely convinced that Texas wins that game a year ago if Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt. There was so much game left to be played that it's hard for me to draw conclusions just off of the first quarter. I certainly think it's possible. Like, I'm not poo-pooing that it could have happened. I'm just not 1,000% convinced that it would have, that games change, and the ebb and flow of the way things unfold sometimes are determined by the dynamics with which reality actually presents us. And we didn't get to see Quinn Ewers play a full 4 quarters. I think it would have at some point become much more difficult, that Alabama would have adjusted. We just never quite were able to see that. It's a fascinating game for me because it's all about Quinn Ewers. If Quinn makes a couple of steps, then because of the uncertainty that Alabama has at the same position, I think this becomes a game that Texas can surprise some people with. It all comes down for me to how well Quinn Ewers plays in the moment in September and how much progress he makes between now and then.
You know why I think that's fair? Because I think when we look from Texas from a talent standpoint, Catch, I don't think you can say the team that's going in can't match talent with Alabama, right? A.D. Mitchell can match to talent, with against Alabama. We know what Xavier Worthy can do. We know what Jatavian Sanders can do. You feel pretty good about this offensive line, and we know there'll be some moving parts, and it'll take a second from them to figure it out. But I don't think, Catch, we have any doubt that the guys who play offensive line are going to be bad. Just going to be who are the guys that actually emerge in there. So you go into the offense and you tell yourself you're going to feel really good about the offense. There'll be some defensive components that they'll need to replace. But again, we're not talking about drop-offs. Like there's outside of what DeMarvion Overshown may end up being the highest draft pick on this defense. And then we're still thinking that's probably a day 3, at this point. Hey, if he does get hired, so be it. Like, would love it for him. Wish him nothing but success. But
I think he's going to go day 2.
You think you think like second or third round?
Yeah, he'll be, from everything that I've been reading, he's going to go in the top 100 for sure.
You always got to give yourself a margin and an error with those things.
You are like, I'm into this thing almost a decade now, and every Texas player has like a 2 or 3 round backwards bounce from where Texas.
Yes,
people.
You got to any projection. That is my golden rule, because I did the NFL, not only Texas, but the NFL draft for God knows how many years prior to that. I've always said you've got to give yourself at least a 2-round cushion. So if someone's projecting 3rd round, that could easily be 5th round. If they're projecting,
I think Overshown's easily going day 2. Okay. I have more confidence that he will go day 2 than I have that Bijan will go day 1. Only because it's such a deep year at running back that everybody loves Bijan. Everybody loves him. But there's a sense that the best value at the running back position will be in later rounds. It's a really good running back depth year. And you just see a lot of teams that don't want to be laughed at because they're taking running backs in the first round. In the modern day NFL, it's the wrong way to draft. So I'm pretty sure that Bijan's going to go in the first round. But man, I see a lot of mocks where he falls into the bottom 5 picks of the first round. So you start getting that close, and if it really unfolds like that, then there will be more nervousness about, God, is this going to happen? Should he have come back? Like, if Bijan Robinson can't get a first round grade, then what the hell could any running back in 2023 be drafted in the first round? I think both things are going to occur. But back to the overall discussion.
But the overall point was, from a defensive standpoint, whatever they lose, DeMarvion is the biggest loss, is what I was trying to say, of anyone that they're losing. And everyone else, like the Keandres and Moro Jomos of the world, that's what I'm saying. My point was, they'll be later draft picks, but they're not like day one when you say to yourself, how do you replace that guy?
Well, we haven't mentioned it, but like, how do you replace Bijan? Like, I think we're a little too, I don't know if optimistic is the right word. I think we're giving some benefit of the doubt to a Texas offense that has not been good without Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson at this point. On paper, this passing game should be killer, but it wasn't killer a year ago. And now it's an offense with unproven parts in the passing game, no longer supplemented by elite parts in the running game. Whatever we see of Texas in week 2, it's early. So it could still be that Quinn Ewers is rounding himself into form. Same thing with the running backs. It may be that this offense doesn't hit its stride until week 4 or week 5, which is pretty similar to kind of what I think about Alabama. These two teams on paper will be trying to find themselves very early in a really competitive game. And I would say, I think Texas can match up Alabama. Its top 10 guys in the program can play for Alabama. They start going from 11 to 20 and beyond, Alabama's got better players. So it will be paramount that Texas have an edge somewhere, and the edge has to be at quarterback. Alabama will be playing a young guy who's never played in a game of that magnitude. We can say that about Quinn Ewers. He has. He's played against Oklahoma. He's played against Alabama. He's played in bowl games. He has now played in big games, home, road, neutral. It should be the advantage that Texas has. If this comes down to something other than the quarterbacks, if it comes down to the rest of the roster, Alabama's going to win this game by something close to 9.5. What made this game close a year ago is that Quinn Ewers was so lights out early on. I mean, that was as good as we ever saw him play, with all due respect to the Oklahoma game. What he did early on against Alabama was inspiring. If he brings that to the table in this game, Texas has a chance to win the game. But I mean, there's a lot of pressure, I think, on Quinn Ewers to be the difference maker, because I don't know that across the rest of the roster, Texas has better players than Alabama. In fact, I know they don't. Not yet. They've got really good young players, but I don't know that I'm counting on a lot of the Steve Sarkisian recruiting classes to win this game. This will, the overwhelming majority of the starters on this team right now are still Steve Sarkisian recruited guys. The good news is they're all juniors and seniors now. They're older players. Texas will go to Tuscaloosa with a bunch of 20-year-old something guys playing. And that's a change from what we've seen of Texas in recent years, where it's like, oh my God, look how young they are. This will be an experienced team that goes to Tuscaloosa. If it can put an edge at quarterback on the field and sustain it for 4 quarters, I think Texas has a chance to surprise some people in this game. And at that point, I'm taking Texas in the points. But if Quinn Ewers isn't that guy in week 2, then Texas will lose this game by 3 scores.
I mean, I think the thing that you got to also factor into that, because I don't see any scenario where they lose by 3 scores, but I would have to say that you got to remember, Alabama is breaking in a new offensive coordinator. So Bill O'Brien's gone. Tommy Rees is there. He's a young guy. So you're going to talk about a new OC with a new quarterback in week 2 versus Texas. That's a daunting task for them as well. There's also another stat while you were talking, I was looking up, Bill Conley put out his returning production ratings recently. He said, or maybe early this year or something to that effect, but he ranked Alabama's offense at 120th in the country as far as returning production ratings. Now, we have to get into all the specifics. Everyone could go research that on their own. I'm just saying that I think Alabama enters in with their own questions. Like they again, I know they reload, but you can't reload every single year. I mean, they're losing guys who, how many of these guys are going to be first round picks? Like they're losing a lot.
They in the last 4 years have signed, if I remember the number correctly, 36 super blue chip players. They'll have almost 4 times as many super blue chips on their roster as Texas when Texas comes to Tuscaloosa. In terms of
how many of those guys are playing? They're not all going to play. Yeah, I was going to say there's going to be some guys on the bench. There are going to be some guys.
Are you doubting that Alabama has first round draft picks on its roster?
I'm not doubting that Alabama has first round draft picks, but what was that number last year when the Texas played against them? Like so, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I think the advantage that Texas
I can't ignore how can you ignore that last year happened?
I'm not.
But because if you're toe to toe, they went toe to toe with Hudson
each other in the bowl game. Do you think that game runs as close as it did in September? The wild card in last year's game was that it was early, and I think that that's the wild card this year as well. That I can talk myself into 10 different scenarios unfolding, some good, some bad, but part of the edge that Texas has to have is at quarterback. They have their guy. He just has to be better. Now, the Alabama game a year ago, but it was only a quarter. He only played 25% of the game. It was a great first quarter. But you know what? I can go to any number of games from last season where if we selectively take the best quarter that Quinn Ewers played in a game, you would think that the overall production was pretty good. Even in the bowl game, where generally the reviews of that game were that Quinn was pretty good in the bowl game. He wasn't great. They lost, but he was okay. But if you go back and break it down by quarter, he had 1 great quarter and 3 very, very average quarters. So, I look back at last season, and could Texas have beaten Alabama last year if he stays healthy? Absolutely. I might even lean towards they probably would beat Alabama based on what we were watching as the game unfolds. And yet everything I said about Quinn Ewers last year ended up being right more than it was wrong. And one of the things that I would say about had he continued to play in that game against Alabama, I think they reversed to the mean. But if he stays, everything about that game and the way that we watched it unfold changes. Nothing that happened afterwards happens at all. And it's a completely different game. I lean towards Texas because of the way they were playing that day, but I don't know. None of us know. And it was too close to certifiably feel like you can say something definitively, because where Hudson Card didn't do much other than late in the fourth quarter give Texas a chance to win the game or be in the game. Maybe if Ewers stays in that game, he makes a couple of mistakes. Maybe he throws for 3 more touchdown passes. It's just impossible to say. What I know is that if these two teams had played at the end of the year, Alabama would have curb stomped Texas. And one of the reasons why I know that is Texas really was defeated handedly by Washington. That game, Washington wins that game, and it never felt like they were in control of that game. Alabama beat Kansas State down bad. By the end of the year, they had hit their stride. And they were one of the best 5 teams in America. That's not what Texas was at the end of the year. Texas at the end of the year was an 8-5 team that on their best day could play with just about anybody. And on their worst days, they could still look rather average. And that's the part of this team that we have to figure out going into 2023. Can they be better than that? Can they be better than occasionally very good, but maybe once every 3 weeks, a very average team with quarterback issues? Real quick.
But okay, because I want to respond to that. But go ahead.
Go for it.
Well, the only thing I would say to what you're saying is no matter what you feel of as far as Quinn's performance last season, there wasn't a single game where Texas lost by more than 7 points. So no matter as with highs and lows from a team standpoint, there wasn't a game worse than 7. The line we're talking about, the subject matter is a line by 9.5. So we're not even talking about like the wins and losses. We're really addressing the 9.5. And I'm saying there's not a single game where Texas lost by more than 7, no matter how badly you think Quinn played.
They lose by 14 to TCU, if not for a very late defensive score. When that game had already been decided, and then it was like, oh, wait, did Texas just score? And now they're down by 7 at home. I think Blake just sent us a note as our producer. Alabama's only lost twice at home since the start of the CFP. Interesting stat there. Look, I think Texas goes into this game with a chance to win. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I think Alabama can be had, especially in week 2 of the season. I just think we have to be careful with presenting Texas as something that they haven't yet proven to be. They weren't good enough to beat Washington in the bowl game. And it never felt like an accident. Now, they're missing Bijan. They're missing Roschon. That game looks entirely different if they're fully on board. But they're not going to have Bijan or Roschon in this game either. So I think, look, we're talking about the point spread. Today, I'm taking Texas plus the 9.5. It's just not a game. Could they lose by 3 scores? Yes. Why? Because Alabama's really freaking good. Texas is not so good that you can guarantee that they go to Tuscaloosa and keep it within 10 no matter what. They're not.
Three score. I guess we'll this is where I guess this will be. We haven't had an off-season debate in a while, but damn it, Zach Shackelford 2.0, let the debate begin. I think they're good enough to hang with a team like Alabama. I just do. Alabama is losing
Alabama for 3 quarters and still lose by 3 scores. And look, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm literally saying I will take Texas and the points today. However, if we had a pie chart of percentages of possibilities of outcomes, there is a slice of the pie where Texas gets its ass kicked. And if you don't think that's possible, then we're just not going to be on the same page today, because Alabama will go into this season, justifiably so, one of the best, most highly rated teams in the country. They'll be a favorite for the playoff. And we're trying to figure out if Texas can win 9 games. From a pure class department, Alabama's in a different class than Texas. What changes that? Games like this. If you want to start talking about Texas elevating itself and being ready to be in a different class, you perform in a game like this. They're wins away in the state of Kansas from being a team that this entire offseason we would talk about Sarkisian's record on the road as a head coach at Texas. Literally until November of last year, it was not a record that you'd even want to say out loud. Now, they handled their business at the end of the season, so that's not a talking point, but it probably still should be. They're still at best a very average road team under Steve Sarkisian at best. So, this will be we'll find out a lot about this team. My instincts say that it's closer than that, but I'm not going to be myopic and think that Alabama can't open up a can against this Texas football team, especially since we haven't seen the improved Quinn Ewers with our own eyes. We do not know what it looks like for Quinn Ewers without a run game, going on the road at Alabama. It's a different proposition to what it was that he had to work with a year ago when he had 100,000 plus rabid fans, maybe the best crowd that Texas has ever had, or certainly in the top 5. It's in the discussion. Everybody on that day kind of clicking on the same cylinders. You do that in Tuscaloosa, you got a chance to win. It's just a much more difficult thing to do. Now, real quick on War, because we've already probably gone longer on talking Alabama. I knew we would. I knew this would be a good, healthy discussion about the state of affairs at Texas. FanDuel also put a point spread on the Oklahoma game in October, where Texas is a 5.5-point favorite.
Yeah, so
on the heels of a 49-0 beatdown.
Only 5.5 points. Like I expect Oklahoma to be a little bit better this year. Catch, like I will give Oklahoma, a couple of things. And yes, I know what every Texas fan will say the moment you say OU. I know. Feel free to put it in the chat. Go, you know what you're going to say. But I don't expect them to be as bad as they were, last season and have an ass kicking like that. I don't expect 2 ass kickings in a row like that. That would shock me. Brent Venables, I would have to give him credit from a recruiting standpoint that far exceeded my expectations. Like, and I try to be fair about it. I thought after 49-0, they would be dead in the water. I didn't think anybody would want to come to OU. To the credit to their staff, they were able to go and get, what did they finish with, Catch? Were it the number 5 class, number 6? They were top 10 for sure. Yeah. They end up getting a 5-star quarterback, so Texas has Arch. We talk about them, but they end up getting a 5-star quarterback as well. They've got a lot of talent that's there. So we'll see what they do from a coaching perspective, but I will still give Texas the edge just because, I think they're a little bit further along as far as the development of the program is concerned. But I don't expect an ass whooping again. I think it would be a little bit more of a competitive game this year.
I would take Oklahoma plus the points, thinking
we are so opposite today.
Well, I think Texas wins the game. I'm saying the same thing you are, though. I think the game plays closer. If forced to put a grand on the outcome of the game, I think Texas is still the better team. And I think Texas would win the game. I think it just plays close. I think given the game that occurred a year ago, Oklahoma will be ready this year for that game. I think it'll be a much more competitive game. I think Texas still wins. But 5.5, it's almost as, it's a field goal away from being what Vegas thinks of Alabama and Texas in September. That's easily the highest number I can remember Texas being favored in the OU game since 2005, maybe. Like, I don't know. These games have typically, it's a 3 or, unless Oklahoma's been significantly favored because they've been the clear better team, which they have been for much of the last 20 years or so. When the two teams are good, it's usually like a field goal. I can't remember the last time Texas was at least a 5.5-point favorite. It makes me take Oklahoma in the points, but I could be talked into Texas beating. Oklahoma is a lot like the Alabama-Texas discussion, and that whoever they're going to be, we haven't seen it yet. And to be fair to Oklahoma, they didn't have Dylan Gabriel in last year's game, although Dylan Gabriel didn't keep them from getting their butts kicked at TCU. I think that game was at home. They lose to Kansas State. He wasn't a total difference maker a year ago. But in year 2, Venables will have a team that more closely aligns with his vision of what a Brent Venables OU team looks like. They got a lot of guys coming in from the portal. If you were going to play Oklahoma, you'd like to catch them in week 2 before they've had a chance to kind of feel their way out of who they're going to be. I agree with you. I think when these two teams play in Dallas, it'll be a much more competitive game, which is why today I would take OU plus the points, thinking Texas would win. if you were going to tell me that one of these two teams would win the game by more than a touchdown, I would assume it's Texas.
By the way, I went to look as you were talking, Catch. I went to go on the Texas website, UT website, in order to pull up the 2023 schedule. It's still not on the University of Texas website, the 2023 schedule. I don't know what the hell is going on. It's almost like they're putting their ears, they hit the fingers in their ears, are like la la la, just waiting for the SEC. Like we refuse to acknowledge anything 2023 related. So I don't understand. It makes no sense to me. Because I was trying to see what it would look like heading into the OU game. After they opened with Rice at Alabama. We'll see what happens there. But then they come back Wyoming, right? So at the very least, Texas should be 2-1 after that. They go on the road to Baylor. That to me on paper should be a win. Then Kansas at home. That to me should be a win, even though it's Kansas, and I know how you feel about Jalen Daniels. So I will not say anything disparaging about that. But Texas should enter that OU game with only one loss, Catch. And, you haven't been able to say that a ton of times, I think, throughout the years. But I think Texas has a chance to get some momentum heading into that game. Like you said, that is a rivalry game where I saw a Charlie Strong bad team go beat OU one year. So I understand that anything can happen, within this game. For me, I think OU is still figuring it out. Like I said, I think if you're an OU fan, you got to feel like, hey, going into the SEC, they're building as well, so they're not going to be overmatched. Because you don't want to go in the SEC and beat Texas A&M, which is just some middle of the road program for eternity. Like you want to feel like you have a chance to compete. OU's recruiting at a pretty good level. I think Texas is a little bit ahead of you. Will I stand on the table, and say like Texas won't win by a field goal? Like, no. Clearly, I've seen that happen before. Dicker the kicker happened, right? So we know that can occur. We know how close that game was with Kyler Murray and Sam Ehlinger. So like I said, I'll give Texas the advantage. I give Texas the win. You told me Texas win by 7 today. I wouldn't blink an eye at it. But yeah, it's an interesting bet. But I probably would put the money on Texas at that point. I'll be honest with you.
Of the 4 bets you could make that we've discussed, let's end it on this.
Okay.
Texas plus 9.5, Alabama minus 9.5, Texas plus, I guess Texas would be minus 5.5, and Oklahoma would be plus 5.5. If you could put $1,000 on any of those 4 outcomes, is there one that you feel the best about?
The Texas plus the 9.5 versus Alabama. That's probably me the one, because I mean that requires me to really open my mind to I guess 10 points is not an ass kicking. I mean, you can score late and get to 10, right? I guess I'm giving Texas some credit, and maybe I'm giving them too much of a benefit of the doubt. I mean, that's happened before, but that's almost getting close to like a can of whoop ass kind of thing. I think that's putting it out there just enough because they expect something worse to happen, and that one would probably be a little bit hard for me. The Texas OU thing is just always it's just a weird game for me where I just like, I don't know that one. But Texas getting up on the road versus Alabama, what that means for Steve Sarkisian, the implications, all of that, like to me, I would probably do that. I'm guessing you would probably go the opposite. Would you take Texas? You'd probably take the OU 5.5.
I don't know. To Vegas's, or I guess FanDuel's credit, they're the one that establishing the line. There's a part of me that thinks that these lines are somewhat created to encourage the betting.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's out here 6 months beforehand, and it feels like they're trying to, especially with the Texas-Alabama game, it feels like they're trying to drag in some Texas bets. generally speaking, we think of a home field advantage as being worth a field goal in the betting department. It's like a 3-point deal. So if Oklahoma, if Alabama and Texas were playing on a neutral field to open the season, and you were giving me Texas in 6.5, I would take Alabama minus the 6.5. So they're playing. I think I'm talking myself into the opposite of what I've said I would instinctively do, which is, I don't know. Like, I don't know that I feel, if you're going to force me to give an answer, maybe Oklahoma 5.5. But I don't feel great about it. So I would stay away from both lines as of now. But if I had to do one thing, I think there's just something about that Alabama game that makes me think it's a sucker number to some degree. Because when we talk about benefit of the doubt for Texas, it is not yet earned. They haven't done it yet. Lost the bowl game, didn't make it to the Big 12 championship. About the best thing, they didn't show up for the TCU game. They lose a lot. I mean, we could talk about a lot of these guys aren't high-end NFL players, but there are a lot of guys that I think are going to play on Sundays that have departed this Texas team. I don't know.
But I feel like Catch. I asked Blake the question. I feel like the line last year was something crazy for Texas, Alabama, like 19 or something to that effect.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, so I feel like, and Blake's looking it up for us right now, but I feel like it was crazy where I was like, "Ooh, that's a lot." So that's where I'm like, I think Vegas may have learned their lesson on that one and lowering it, but that's the weird thing about Texas, Catch, for me is that, because I think two things can be true. I've seen Texas year after year be able to get up sometimes. Well, outside of the Arkansas game, but other games I've seen them be able to get up for something big. This one I can see them being able to get up, and then some questions about the other games in the season. But
what is the biggest compliment we can give Texas under Steve Sarkisian at this point?
The biggest compliment.
Yeah, win
on the field, overall, because the biggest compliment is they've recruited extremely well.
I mean, on the field. I mean,
okay.
Ultimately, they've proven. What is the thing that we can point to that says this is when they prove the most?
I think the only thing I can think of that comes off there's a couple of things. The offensive line has gotten a lot better. If you want to talk about like a huge compliment, linebackers have played better. If from an overall totality standpoint, the games were more competitive last year, but again, nothing more than 7 points last year. So you can say they're more competitive and there's some buy-in. But if you're looking for just pure results, Steve Sarkisian is still searching for a signature win.
Yeah.
So pure results. There's nothing that you can say that was that. The OU game was great. And Blake says Alabama was a 21.5 via Caesars, which boy, if you and I could go into the DeLorean with this knowledge and go back in time, you and I would be the richest guys out there. Because we would have bet the farm, taking out the second mortgage into everything, and we could go into the DeLorean on that one.
All right, let's wrap it up. Guys, do us a solid. Leave your predictions for these games. What is, in your mind, the safest, strongest bet of the 4 options we've talked about today? Like this video, subscribe to the channel, do all of those things that would make us so very happy for you to do. We're almost at 15,000 subscribers. Help us get there. If you're watching the channel on the regular and not a subscriber, help us out. Just click on that button. Click on all of the buttons, the thumbs up, all of it. For Onward, myself, and Blake, you guys have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday for the Monday Overreaction Show. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.